to the Marina Skua podcast. I said last time that I didn't know if I was going to get time to make another video, but I'm just managing it. This is my last day of work before I go on maternity leave, and I'm excited. Honestly, I am. I'm looking forward to a bit of a rest because it's all been manic recently. But I've got a few things that I'd love to show you just before I semi-vanish for a while. So I hope you'll come along and hear about my knitting and spinning projects. So first up, I will talk about what I'm wearing because I have a few patterns that I have released since last time we talked. These are patterns that have been previously released in publications that are now available as individual patterns. So this one is Frosty Mornings. It was published in The Knitter, and it was inspired by, traceries of hoarfrost on plants and dried flowers out in the garden on a winter's morning, before the sunlight reaches everything and starts melting it all. And it was, I think it's the most swatching I've ever done to try and get a stitch pattern right, because this yoke is somewhat complex. It's stranded colourwork and cables, so you've got both at the same time, which is really enjoyable, but it means that I think I specify 4 different needle sizes in the pattern to manage the gauge across the yoke and try and make sure that it's consistent throughout the jumper and you don't get weird lumpy bits. And yeah, I knitted it in my Mendip DK hand-dyed yarn. So this one is showing off 2 colours that are dyed on 2 different bases. Well, the same colour that's dyed on 2 different bases. So the clay colourway on the white is this peachy apricot-y colour. And then on the grey base is this almost neutral, but like pinky, light brown taupey colour. And I love how they work together. I'm not entirely sure that the sunny clay, which is on the white base, is the best colour for my skin tone. But these colours combine really beautifully with warm greens. And they work really nicely. If you're doing quite a complex colour pattern, they work really nicely as almost a neutral, like not quite, but they're light enough that they can work as a warm neutral. I honestly haven't been wearing this jumper as much as some of the other things I'm going to show you recently, because I don't really like how it's sitting on the shape I am at the moment. So it's standard sort of top-down yoke construction. We've got short rows at the back, which I'll turn around and show you, but don't really show up. So the short rows only happen below the yoke pattern because there is too much going on at the top here to incorporate them without it looking really awkward. We've got corrugated ribbing and tubular bind-offs at the cuffs and the hem. And this is why I'm not really wearing this much. I'm just not enjoying how it's sitting on me at the moment. I think it's hitting at an awkward length, and this sample, the design isn't intended to be worn with loads of positive ease. And some of my things that have a bit more positive ease built in just have a bit more room to accommodate the bump, and this one doesn't. So it means it sort of rides up a bit awkwardly. Yes, I love the colour, the corrugated rib, so knitting and purling using both colours. The sleeves aren't tapered, so there's a little bit of extra room. I haven't gone for a full balloony thing. There are just some decreases at the wrist. We've got a slightly longer sleeve than I often do. So it does actually hit hand length when my hands are down by my side. But that's very easy to modify should you want to, because little to, the larger sizes have some tapering in the sleeves, the smaller sizes don't. That's just because with the way, like proportionally, people who are knitting a larger size are much more likely to have a bigger difference between their upper arm and their wrist versus a smaller size where your wrist is likely to be closer in measurement to your upper arm, although it's not going to be the same. So there are some decreases in the larger sizes just to bring in the excess, so you don't end up with a really balloony sleeve, just so that the fit is somewhat similar on the sleeves across the sizes. The sleeves are sitting a bit funny on me. They make me look like I've got like quite strangely bulgy biceps, but that's just because my dress sleeves come here and there's quite a lot of volume in the sleeves. So yes, this one is Frosty Mornings. It is a nice one if you are looking to challenge yourself with techniques. If you like doing both colour work and cables. If you've not done either of those things before, I do not recommend this pattern. You will probably have a bad time. I like designing things that have interesting stuff going on, and this one was a bit, why not? Let's see how it goes. And so if you are confident in colour work and cables, then it'll be absolutely no problem for you. But managing the tension and keeping track of the pattern is just something to keep in mind. Yeah, I think that might be all I have to say about this one. But I do love the design. I think it works really nicely for, I think you can get away with slightly more subtle colour contrast than you could with a standard colour work yoke, because you've got the cables for texture as well. And so that means that the difference between the two colours is going to pop a bit more anyway. And so it would be interesting to try in different colour combinations. I think it works really well with the cloudy and the sunny base. So if you choose the same colour on both bases, I actually did, in my original submission for this design, I did a couple of different options for colourways. So I will put a couple of those sketches up here just so you can see a little imagined preview of how that might look, an artist's impression. And yeah, I think it would be really nice. I think even in the undyed colours, with the grey as the main body and the white, would look so pretty and wintry and just really cosy. So yes, I shall... Okay, while I've got this one on, I'll show you the mitts. So these ones, I've got a couple of pairs here, but they're the same design. These are the Hayward mitts. I keep wanting to say Hayward, as in towards the hay, but it's Hayward as in Haywarden, who were traditionally people who protected crops from cows. So they would ensure the cows stayed where they were and didn't get into the fields of crops that needed to be harvested. So they were inspired by traditional shepherd smocks in the West Country, so in the southwest of England. These were designed for the John Arbon Annual, issue 3, and there were lots of smocks in the mood board for that one, and I was tempted to design something bigger and more complex because that's the way my brain goes. But they do like to publish accessory patterns predominantly, or simple garments. And so with these, I wanted to try various different techniques to convey some of the details of the smock. So we've got the colour work, which evokes some of the embroidery you would see on the smocks, and then a herringbone stitch around the cuff, which is intended to kind of mimic that smocking. And then we've got some moss stitch, mostly because I love a bit of moss stitch. And Yeah. So this yarn is Devonia DK in the colours Furbelows and Sandbar. I think it's a really lovely sort of heartening combination and feels like low-key Christmassy, like a Christmas tree with just lights on it but not other decorations, but without that being prohibitive to wearing them at other times, because I don't like things that are for like one specific occasion and you can't wear them for anything else. Oh, I didn't show you. The cuffs button up so you can get a little bit of a closer fit. So the cuffs are actually worked flat and then you can button them up. And the other pair, so there are two different gauges in the pattern, which means they come out at slightly different sizes. So that one was a DK weight and this one is a sport weight. And so the gauges are listed separately and the sizing is listed separately for them, but the instructions are the same. So these ones are following the same instructions, but they've just come out a little bit smaller and neater and they're really cute. The yarn is Yarnadelic in Ordinary Joe and Les Fleurs. And yeah, they're just very pretty. And again, there are a couple of different places in the pattern where you can modify the length. So if you want them to come further up your fingers or you want a bit more length on the wrist, like that is eminently doable, but obviously just takes up a bit more yarn. So those are the Hayward mitts. They are on my website and Ravelry, as is the case with most of my patterns. And then one more new design to show you, which I have just here, and where I've not been wearing this one much at the moment. I'd love to hear what you think of this colour on me. It doesn't help that my face is looking tired at the moment. I know pale colours near my face aren't great at the best of times, but yes, eventually I will be less tired at some point in the distant future. This one is much more in my usual colour range, and let's show you first before putting it on, because then I can show you details easily. So this one I've been wearing lots. It's shorter. That's not the main feature of it, but that's the reason I've been wearing it lots. And also I love this colour. This is Mendip DK again. And it kind of shows, like, so these are both in the same yarn. This is the ore colourway on the cloudy base, so the grey base. And because they're in very different stitch patterns, and this one's quite sort of structural, it just kind of shows how the same yarn can be used for different things. Like that should be obvious, but like it's not a drapey yarn. It's got lots of spring and bounce to it, and that helps with the stretchiness of these cables across the yoke, but it also helps with the structure of this. It's not so it's a woolen spun yarn, so it's really lightweight, and so it sits differently to how a sort of heavily structured worsted yarn would, which would probably have a bit more drape and would actually be lovely. And so this one's worked bottom up, and you've got these alternating ribbing and moss stitch details which come outwards. So this is called conflux, the idea that these sections are kind of converging in the middle. And then the sleeves are worked in the round from the bottom up, separated for sleeves and neckline, worked flat at the top, shoulders joined with a 3-needle bind off, and then sleeves picked up and worked in the round. And so you've got the same design, but the stitch pattern is flipped because of working top down for the sleeves versus bottom up for the body. But you've got the same detail running down the sleeves. So the pattern runs all over. And it's one of those things, it's just really satisfying to me. And the way the pattern sits, if you can see at the hem there, it sits slightly higher at the middle and then a bit lower at the sides. And that also means that you don't need short row shaping in the shoulders because of the way the pattern is put together. With the diagonal sections, it uses paired increases and decreases. And so instead of all of your stitches going in this direction, your stitches for most of the body, from that central column, your stitches go like this. And so that means that the fabric wants to sit diagonally, which then when you get to the shoulders, means that it's not quite horizontal. They slope downwards naturally, and then the same happens at the bottom of the body where the hem dips a bit towards the sides. And I love that as a detail, and not planned for at all, but I really like how that is sitting on me at the moment. I said in the last video that I am wearing this dress all the time, and it is true. I still haven't gathered in the sleeves. I don't know if I'm going to bother. We shall see. And this one, I just really love it. It's got so many details that I love. I really enjoy diagonal details. I really enjoy stitch patterns that fit neatly with each other. So like the way the ribbing at the bottom here goes straight up into the ribbing details in the stitch pattern. The way everything kind of converges at the side and then is reflected. So you've got multiple points of symmetry. Get my hair out of the way. And then the way, how can I show you this nicely? The way everything comes together over the shoulder, the way the shoulder seam then runs into the central column of purl stitches in the design there. It's just all very satisfying to me, and it's the kind of design work that I love. And so, yes, the pattern for this one is available. Again, I will have it linked in the description box below. And one thing to note with this, if you are a written instruction follower for stitch patterns, it might not be the best for you because of the scale of the pattern and the way the middle and the side seam, not seams, but details interact. It requires quite large charts, and so there are quite a few charts for different sizes, and so in order to be able to grade it out properly, I had to create, I think there are 6 charts in total, maybe, but you should only end up needing 2 of them. You just have to choose the right ones for your size. And so the stitch pattern for the body is charted only because the written instructions would take up pages and pages and pages and be days to weeks worth of writing. And I think, I don't know. I am definitely a charted instruction follower, and I, in all of my patterns, wherever possible, try to include corresponding written instructions, because I know that some suit people better than others. As in, some people prefer written, some people prefer charted. I'm very much a visual person, which I think shouldn't be surprising given what I do. But in this case, it's just, there aren't corresponding written instructions for the stitch pattern. Obviously the pattern is written out, but it says, you know, for this section, follow the charts. And so yeah, but it's one where I really, really loved knitting this, to the point that I kind of want to knit another one. I have some handspun Solace blend, which is one of my fibre blends, which I might use for another version of this. The yarn is currently grey. It's very pretty. I love the shade of the natural Solace blend, but I have decided that grey doesn't look great next to my face. And also I have a couple of grey jumper, cardigan garments in a very similar shade, and so I might dye that yarn. So I might end up with a version of this in like a dark green or something, but we shall see. It's going to be a little while before I get around to dyeing anything. We're currently in the process of moving all of my studio stuff. So I've got my wool room upstairs, which is just in a spare bedroom, which has been the case for about a year and a half. And then my dye space, which is in a very small utility room. All of that stuff is being moved out to my new studio, hence some of the tiredness. I've been doing that in the evenings, and husband is recruited to lift the heavier things, because, yeah. But so we are in the process of moving everything out to the studio, and then it is probably going to take most of my maternity leave to get the studio ready for my return to work. But I am hoping to get little bits and pieces of like project work done in there at the same time, and sort of use the space a bit while I'm on leave, so that I can work out how I want it arranged and where I want everything. So it's going to be a little while before I do any dyeing, because I don't currently have a surface out there that I can put all of my pans and burners and everything on. But next public video when I'm back from leave will probably be from out there. So yes, I would like to make another one of these. It's an enormously fun knit. It's one of the ones that I really, really didn't enjoy putting the pattern together originally, just because managing the stitch pattern and how it works with the sizes is something that is really important. I try and make my patterns as size inclusive as possible, sometimes depending on restrictions of whoever's publishing it. But this one and the Frosty Mornings, which I was just wearing, and the vast majority of my other garment patterns come in 10 sizes. And I try to make sure that they're going to fit nicely on everyone. And so just getting the grading and the stitch pattern and everything right for this, when I just didn't expect the stitch pattern to be such a... Again, it's not difficult to follow, but it's just a bit of a one to put together in a pattern. And so it will be nice to be able to knit this again without the slight back of the mind doom of how am I going to write this up. Because again, it's not complex to follow the instructions now that they exist. But I do try and write them in a way that I find the most useful and intuitive, and I know that's not going to be the case for everyone, because everyone has different preferences in how they want their patterns formatted. You know, I spend quite a lot of time in online knitting spaces, and you see people talking about how they want their patterns written, and some people saying it's ridiculous that this jumper pattern is taking 13 pages. This one isn't 13 pages, but you know. Yeah, you know, so many of these instructions are unnecessary and explain things that don't need explaining. And then you see other people saying it's frankly insulting that pattern designers use abbreviations and can't be bothered to write out words such as knit and purl. And I try and go somewhere in the middle. I want things to be explained so that people who are confident can follow the instructions easily. I don't want to leave too much like actually working out what you're meant to do yourself. But at the same time, if there are techniques that are like standard techniques, I'm not going to teach you how to cast on or how to do a specific bind off. Like if there is a named technique, you can look those things up. And so I try to find a middle ground. I try to write the kind of patterns that I would like to follow. There is explanation in there that I probably wouldn't need, but that's because the design is already in my head. So yeah, I try to work things out in a way that is going to suit as many people as I can. Yes, slight sidebar. I meant to be trying to keep things brief today because I've got quite a lot to do, but I'm enjoying chatting. So yes, this is Conflux, and I will show you a thing I finished last night. So well, again, I'll show you this one first. I should have done the buttons up. I'll do that when I put it on. This is my third scrumper waistcoat. I never expected to love this pattern so much. I also didn't expect it to be as popular as it is. It's easily my most popular pattern. And I just wasn't expecting people to appreciate the slight grandpa vibes so much. But look at this fabric. It's glorious. This is... So where to start? I have used yarn from Black Isle Yarns. This is a discontinued yarn. It's a long wool blend from many years ago. I bought this from Julie at the last Edinburgh Yarn Festival that happened. And I think part of the reason I've knitted so many, well, 3 isn't loads, but for me that's many. I don't usually like re-knitting patterns, although I am noticing a trend towards me doing more of that. But to me, it's the perfect 200-gram project. Like if I make it shorter than the pattern specifies. So in my original sample and in the pattern, it's got 6 buttons. So it's 2 buttons longer, which is really good for if you want some hip warmth, like if you're wearing slightly lower waisted trousers, or if you're going out walking and just want to make sure the wind doesn't get up between your layers and stuff. Like it's nice to have some overlap there. But for a more cropped version, for my size at least, it's something I can actually do with 200 grams of yarn, which is really nice because I find that an awkward quantity, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And so I had 200 grams of this yarn from Julie. This is what I have left. So the pattern is written for a DK weight yarn, but this is actually it's on the label, it's down as a 4-ply, but I think it's more like a sort of sport weight. And I've knitted it somewhat loosely, so you get this really nice drapey fabric. And let's try it on so you can see properly. Parade of outfits today. I think this is the last thing I will put on for you. And I love this colour. I really, really like this colour. It makes me very happy, and I can wear it open like this. I have actually just sewed the buttons on now. I went through my little button stash. I was considering using some more Tom Dyson buttons, which I used for one of my other samples and have used for so many of my cardigans, just because I love them. I love Tom's work. While we're on that, I meant to mention this last time when I was talking about the cherry buttons. I do stock his buttons in my shop, and he sent me this beautiful necklace, which is a large button on a silver chain. And and it's one of the U buttons, which I think is the perfect colour to go with this waistcoat. Actually, this chain is long enough I can just do it in front of me, for goodness sake. There we go, finally. There we go. I should wear it with things that don't already have buttons in the way because it clashes a bit. But look how well that works colour-wise. So it's a very, very pretty thing and just so lovely. Tom sent this to me along with my last order just as a little present. And it's just so pretty and sweet. So yeah, I think if I wear this waistcoat with another dress that doesn't have buttons down the front, which might not be the case for a while, I'm going to need buttons for a long time. I think it'd be really nice. Like, the colour works beautifully and I think it balances well. And oh, can we? Oh, it sits just a tiny bit low to have it buttoned up. Anyhow, I'll just tuck that in for now. But Tom does have, I don't stock these necklaces, but Tom does have them available from his shop. While I am on maternity leave, I will still have my shop open, my online shop. It's just going to be for people who are willing to wait patiently for their orders, because I'm only going to be, well, we are only going to be shipping every couple of weeks because I'm going to be recruiting my husband to help me out with order packing, and we will have a small baby to look after. So yes, again, this will eventually not fit like this. It will be a bit looser and quite cute. I had so much the opposite of fun doing the shoulders of this, because my brain being what it is at the moment, in my last episode I showed that I had finished my pediment jumper, which I knitted in a size bigger than usual, because usually in my patterns I always knit a size 2, because that's the size that is my body size. And for the pediment I had decided to knit a size 3, and I was alternating these two projects, and so for the back of this I followed the size 2 as I was meant to, and then for the front I wrote out my little series of circles, which I described in the last episode, for how to do the decreases, but I copied down all of the numbers from size 3 instead of size 2, and so when it came to seam up the shoulders I had fewer stitches for the front than I needed for the back. Not egregiously so, but it was more than I could just fudge by doing a little extra decrease when I was doing the bind off, which I have done in the past. That happens. And so I had to, because the back stitches were on hold, I had to like pull back the last row, do a couple of decreases in the back shoulders, and then cast off a couple more stitches than specified for the back neck, which means that theoretically this front width here is a little bit narrower than it should be according to the pattern, and the back neck is a little bit wider. It's a stitch count difference that was annoying enough for knitting, but like visually in terms of the actual fit of the garment won't have loads of effect. But I think it's sitting really cutely and I like it very much. And so these buttons, I went through my button stash and I had 2 of the U buttons of Tom's, which are probably the ones I would have chosen for this because the colour is so perfect. For reference. I had 2 of those on a card from my last scrub and per waistcoat that I made, which used 4 buttons and they come in packs of 6. And I didn't really want to break into another pack to take 2 out of it and then be left with 4 buttons. And then I had 4 of these metal ones, which are actually the same as my original Scrumper sample, which I did in John Arbon Textiles Appledore DK. And I really like how these fit. I think they're very sweet. They're kind of antique-y, bronzy brass looking things. And I think they work really nicely with the colour of this. I also think it's possibly slightly unusual, but I really like this goldy, yellowy, ochre orange colour with this slightly, very slightly aubergine brown. I like how these are working. I'm just staring at myself in the tiny screen because I've not worn this yet. I literally just sewed on the buttons. And yeah, I'm very excited about it. I'm glad to have it in my wardrobe. And so yes, this one is a size 2. My previous one, which is also a cropped one, like a slightly shorter one, is bottom up, so it's really easy to just knit fewer buttonholes. So like the measurement is given between the buttonholes and you can just stop before you've done all the buttonholes, or you can carry on and do more to change the length of the body. This one's a size 2, my other one is a size 1, and so I haven't been able to wear that for a while because I wanted that one to be like quite cute and fitted and cropped as well. But now it doesn't fit over anything that's going on with me right now. So this one will be a slightly looser one eventually. And I'm really pleased with that. So then, yeah, let's do works in progress. So last night I finished this one. No, wait, I finished it the night before, but it was still drying last night. And my spinning was out in the studio because I had been out there for a Patreon call. I'll show you my spinning very quickly. This is my first bobbin. Lost a nest. Again, similar colour vibes. This is my first bobbin of my fleece flax blend. This is the fibre I've set aside for my second bobbin. And then there will be a third and fourth bobbin after I've plied this one and that one. And then there will be another for the rest of the blend. If you want all the background on that project, as I've done each time I've mentioned it, I will link the playlist because it's a fairly involved one. I am spinning wool that I've naturally dyed and blended with toe flax, and I am spinning it up for a future weaving project. I am in the process of making a video about spinning that yarn. I was hoping I might be able to get it done before my maternity leave, but it is not happening. Unless you want an unsatisfying video in which I start spinning some yarn and don't finish it, and I don't think that's very enjoyable. So instead I will make I filmed the first bit, but the whole video will come probably in the autumn next year when I am back to things, and then you should be able to see some finished yarn, and that'll be lovely. So yes, that's spinning. So my spinning wheel was out in the studio, and so I couldn't spin last night because it was raining really heavily, and I didn't want to go out and lift heavy things because my spinning wheel is quite heavy. And so I was very, very tempted to cast on something new with knitting, but it was already somewhat late and that was a bad idea. And so I am in the mode of wanting to get things that have been hanging around for a long time finished. Because there are a few projects that have been works in progress for an embarrassingly long time. And this is one of them. If you recognize this project, it probably means you've been around for a very, very, very long time, or have recently binged my videos and gone a few years back. We all do it, it's fine. Talking of binging videos. I'm scattered today, we're doing tangents, I'm sorry. I am working my way through the Fleece Folk Diary by Azra, who is Duchess of Sussex on Instagram and possibly Ravelry as well. She's in Australia and she is focusing primarily on using Australian fibre and yarn. And it's very nice to see kind of what I like doing with mostly working with local yarn and fibre, but seeing what that looks like on a different continent, in a different hemisphere, in a different country, in a completely different climate. It's really enjoyable to see what Azra is doing. So yeah, that's what I'm watching at the moment and have been watching whilst working on this. This is a giant scrappy thing. Look how nice the colours are. Like, I like my warm colours, I really do. How does it compare to this one? I think there is actually some of this colour in here. So this was a project I cast on in 2021, I believe. I think it was 2021, not 2020. And I have worked through a lot of my scraps. Like, I've still got some scraps in here. This one, which is the same as this and this, these were from a frogged cardigan. There was a bit of a botched dye job. I've also made that yarn into a cardigan for my small boy, which he wears quite a lot. This one is some leftover from a weaving project for fabric that I turned into a dress. I haven't actually used any of this in here, I just put it in case it came up. And then these are leftovers from another weaving project, which I think I may have used some tiny bits of, but I've been focusing on finishing up smaller balls and scraps. This one has been the common thread throughout the whole project. This is a hand spun one that has quite a lot of soy in it, so it's got a really interesting texture. Soy kind of feels a bit like silk. I don't buy it anymore because I am not really sure how it's processed. And if you can't find transparency on that, there's a chance it's not great. But it does use the soy hulls left over from soybean processing for like tofu and stuff. So it does have that going for it. And it is a very nice fibre. So this is just a giant like cardigan jacket thingy that is intended to be a big hug. And I just started it so long ago, and I don't know why I've just had this massive block about working on it. I'm using 8mm needles for it. And so last night I finished the hem and picked up and started doing the collar. And so I'm doing quite a big, it's quite difficult to see what's going on just because there's so much visual chaos here. But I'm doing quite a big shawl collar, so that's the back of the neck there. And I'm doing some serious short rows to shape that. It's very much improvised. It has the advantage of my stitch gauge being approximately 1 stitch per centimetre, so I can just measure things and say that's how many stitches I need, which is really handy. And I do love how it has used up a lot of yarns. I had enough, like, I often don't like scrap yarn projects because they look visually too messy and are often a bit clashy, and I'm not keen on that. But these colours are so in my wheelhouse that I just happen to have loads of bits and pieces. And you know, some of them were whole 100-gram skeins that I've used up. No, 50-gram skeins. We're not going that. But 50-gram skeins that I didn't know what I would do with that 50 grams of yarn. Like things that had been given to me. And I was hoping I might finish it for you today. Not for you, but like to show you, because the button band is all ruched up on my needles, and so it's difficult to show exactly what it looks like. And it would have been a nice thing, because I think this was possibly one of the last projects I showed before going on maternity leave last time, and it would have been really nice to be like, I actually finished it before this one. But I'll finish that in the next couple of days, I think, because it's obviously working up very quickly. And then I need to decide which buttons to use for it. I have some antler ones that my mother gave me that she got locally to her in Argentina. And I've been waiting for the right project for them, and there are quite a few of them. And so this might be the thing that they work for, but I haven't yet compared colours. They might be a bit too like beigey brown in contrast with the really warm colours. So we shall see, but yes, I will be finishing that one up soon. And so there are projects that I want to finish up, and that is one of them. The fact that the finish line is in sight, and it is ridiculous that I worked on it a bit a few months ago. I may even have showed it then, I can't remember. But then again, it got put aside. And because it involves so many balls of yarn, and there are lots of decisions to be made, because I'm changing it's 3 yarns held together. And for the main body, I was changing one of the yarns every 2 rows. And so it just meant constant decision making. And even though they're not difficult decisions, it's difficult for me to get into a flow just because of how my brain works, I guess. And so I have found it just a project that I keep putting off, and that it gets put in a bag rather than a basket. When things are in baskets, they're out, and that means I'm actively, even if I'm not working on them right this second, it means that they are present in my mind. If it goes into a bag, it doesn't exist anymore. Like, I know it's there, but it's not on my mental list of things I'm going to be making. And so I'm just not going to put that one away until I've actually finished it, and then I can wear it and be the coziest person in the world, because it's so huge and it's going to be really heavy. And I'm considering putting pockets on it. I know that I will enjoy it much more if it has pockets, and I think I will just possibly slap one patch pocket on the right side, or on the right front, and literally just make a rectangle and stitch it down. Or I could be slightly better and at least like pick up stitches along the bottom and then knit it up and then sew up the sides. Don't know. I will be impressed with myself if I make myself do that. I'll be really proud of myself because once it's wearable, then it feels done, right, as these sleeves say. So yes, that one will be finished very soon. Other projects I would like to just get clear off the back of the mind, slight guilt projects. I don't actually feel guilt about unfinished projects because I don't have loads of them, but they're always just back there somewhere, just slightly weighing me down. And I feel better about life when I've finished something, especially if it's been there for ages. So another one, sorry about the crinkling, this is in a plastic bag of chaos. This is more scrappy things. This is yarn that I am spinning from carded scraps. So we've got enormous amounts of yarn barf in here. They're all short lengths. So I keep, like, there's a load of loom waste in here. People were keeping their yarn ties for me and stuff. And here are some bits from my hand-woven skirt project. There are various things from different projects in there. And You know, that was from a weaving project I did for some cushions for my brother. And so I went through all of my scrap stash. Ooh, that's some leftovers from my previous scrumper waistcoat. Stop it, Marina, people don't care. I went through all of my scrap stash, kept aside bits that were long enough to do something with, even if it's just like, I don't know, like a couple of rows in a colourwork, something or other. All of the bits that were too short even for that, I went through and I chopped up into fairly short lengths. And then with my giant hand cards, go and shred them up. I'm not shredding them as thoroughly as you can. So there are still intact bits of yarn in here. I just really like how this is looking, like as a really super tweedy thing. And this is intended to be a rug. This was always intended to be a rug. And I now have a loom, which I didn't have when I started this. I was going to be doing it on my rigid heddle loom. I now have a loom that's actually really good for rug weaving. So, so finishing that up, finishing that bag of scraps is nice because it's a fibre processing project that isn't messy. Because a lot of fibre processing, even if you've like nicely scoured your fleece and stuff, you're still going to get bits of dust and straw and things coming off things. And that's just something I can do on the sofa and then spin up bit at a time, and I don't really mind if that yarn's not consistent, and yay. So that is something I would like to do. And then finally, again, this is a very long-standing work in progress, and I have worked on this recently, but again, it gets put in a bag, and sometimes often I'm not in the mood for embroidery. But this is an old cashmere jumper of my father's, which got some holes in it. Some of them have been repaired not by me, and some of them have been repaired by me. And so in some of the areas where the fixes were just a little bit more obvious, I've gone over and embroidered autumn leaves. So that's a little rowan leaf. I've got an oak leaf down here. And then I'm currently working on a sycamore leaf. And the sycamore leaf is one I've been working on a bit more recently. And theoretically, I could wear it just like that and it would have sort of this cascade of leaves coming down one side. It would be nice to have more leaves for balance, like on the other side and maybe on a sleeve, maybe over that elbow mend there. But you know, if I finish the sycamore leaf, then I could wear this. And it's a really lovely, very soft jumper. And it's a colour that I enjoy. I really like how the tealy blue contrasts with the autumn colours. The yarn I'm using is just hand-dyed lamb's wool singles. Is actually the same yarn that I am weaving with at the moment, which is the same yarn that this is, that didn't get included in my giant scrappy chunky jacket thing. I bought lots of that yarn on cone and have done quite a few different things with it. And I dyed these colours up in very small amounts for a different experimental project I was doing ages and ages and ages ago. Embroidering with singles is interesting. People say you can't do it. People say a lot of things. The yarn does come slightly untwisted as you sew, but that is the case with a lot of things. I think it's also, I've not done any nail binding, but I have heard that that can be an issue with nail binding as well. But when you're embroidering, you don't, or you shouldn't have massive long lengths on your needle. And so when you've got the amount of yarn you have, it's not remotely complicated to just add a bit more twist by twisting the needle and then keep going. And you don't want to overdo it because you don't want your yarn springing back on itself or getting really ropey, but it's very easy to just add the twist back in as you're going. So I would like to finish at least this sycamore leaf at some point soon so that I can wear this. And again, this is a project that has lots of little balls of yarn, and so it gets put in a bag to keep it all neat and compact, and then it gets forgotten about. And so I feel bad for the projects that get forgotten about, and I would like to finish some of them so they don't just get constantly shelved for the new shiny exciting thing. And finally, actually finally now, I said I was going to talk about 200 grams being an annoying quantity of yarn. If it's a light DK or a 4-ply, I know that I can get a nice little waistcoat out of it. It's a good shawl quantity. I do wear shawls quite a lot, but I don't feel the need for loads of shawls in my wardrobe. I would like to make some more shawls at some point, but generally I would like shawls made from a lighter weight yarn because I have lots of heavyweight shawls. I have a few like really warm ones that I love, but I don't feel like I need more of those. So if we've got lighter than a DK weight yarn, I know I can make a garment, which is nice. For me, cropped to a certain degree, I know how my numbers work. This yarn, it smells like Blue-Faced Leicester. Like Blue-Faced Leicester is one of the wools that just has a smell. Lots of them have a smell, but Blue-Faced Leicester has such a distinctive smell, and I don't know why that is. This yarn is from Wild Alpaca Way. They really kindly sent this to me, asking if I wanted to try it out, and it sounded so lovely. They are in Ireland. I can't remember exactly, I can't remember the name of where they are, but I shall link to them below. They are in the very northwest of Ireland, very near the coast. Well, by the coast, because we've got the coast on the label here. Matt, here you go. County Donegal, Malin Head, Inishowen, unsure. But this is 50% alpaca, which is from their alpacas, and then they've had it blended with 50% Blue-Faced Leicester, which is from a very local flock to them of Blue-Faced Leicester sheep. And it's this glorious warm grey. It's looking more grey today than it has when I've looked at it previously, probably because I've looked at it in more sunlight or incandescent light on other occasions. But it's a really nice warm grey. It can verge on taupe in some lights, and it's just so beautifully soft. And they've sent me some just to like try out. And so I know it's going to have loads and loads of drape to it, and it's going to be something luxuriously soft. And I did think I could just make either yet another scrumper waistcoat or a different waistcoat. But it is actually like, it doesn't say on the ball band how many meters there are, but it does say on their website it's 175 meters per 100 grams, which means I've got 350 grams here. Sorry, 350 meters for 200 grams. And I just want to do something really nice with it. I'm considering making something for one of the small children, the one that has existed for a while, or the one that sort of exists, because it is lovely and soft, but also I kind of want something for me because it's lovely and soft and it's a beautiful yarn, and I don't want it to be spoiled by small children. And so it's basically a sort of heavy worsted verging on Aran weight, and I'm undecided, but I really want to work with this very soon because it's lovely and I think, what ply have we got here? I haven't actually checked. Ooh. Okay, so it's a 4-fold. So there are 4 strands plied together. But yeah, light Aran, heavy worsted sort of weight. And I really want to make something nice. And so I'm undecided, but that's on my mind for a fresh, exciting cast on, possibly before Christmas. We shall see. So if you have any ideas for this, because I also have another lot of 200 grams of Aran weight in my yarn stash that I would really like to do something nice with, and just haven't. I want to use up like most of it. I don't want to use a bit of it and then just have a lot left over, because I don't like having leftovers. So I would like to do justice to it. If you have any ideas, I would love to hear them. And of course I can do a Ravelry search and put in my meterage and put in the yarn weight and things, and I have done that. But that can be limited by like sizing and what it, like if you've got a pattern that any of the sizes uses that meterage, then it'll come up. I know that this is a problem for especially people in larger sizes who are looking for what they can make with the amount of yarn that they have. And if they're using the Ravelry search function, which in many ways is fantastic, it will come up with a pattern because the smaller sizes use the amount of yarn they have, but not their size. And I think Lovecrafts might do it differently. That might be one worth looking up. Because I know when I've added patterns sporadically to Lovecrafts in the past, it has asked me how much meterage each individual size uses, and I've had to add that separately. So maybe that's a way to look. Anyway, I can look online. I have done some initial searches, but I would love to hear if you have any thoughts or recommendations or ideas or inspiration. It would be delightful. And so I think I shall stop rambling. I have no idea how long I've been talking. I shall wrap up and say that I am not disappearing forever. I will be back. You will be seeing the occasional video show up from me as members only, and those will also be available on Patreon. Yes, if you want to watch the videos that I'm going to be making whilst on maternity leave, they will be much more casual. They will probably have a few production values because I'm not necessarily going to be getting all of my kit out every time, and I might just be recording on my phone sometimes just to try and get things in when I have a little scrap of time. And so yes, I will continue to make videos over the months I'm on leave. They will be less frequent than they have been and more casual, but they will be a way to keep in touch and see what I'm up to. And you'll get to have a look at what's going on with the studio, and I'll probably include a little bit of how I'm setting that up and any little project updates as I am able to share them. And yes, so Patreon is probably the best place to find me over the next few months. I will be back to YouTube properly again. The videos will be available as members only on YouTube, but for the same amount you get so much more on Patreon. So if you're joining Patreon and you have an Apple device, don't join from iOS because it adds egregious fees that don't go to either Patreon or to me. It is just much more expensive to join from the Patreon app on an iPhone or iPad, and that money just goes to the Apple Store. So if you are looking to use your money in a way that best supports creators, sign up for their Patreon on a desktop. So yes, as I've said, the shop will remain open orders will just be posted less frequently than usual. Patterns. I didn't mention with all of my patterns there, they are all 25% off until the end of December. There is no code needed. So if you are watching this in the next couple of weeks, you can get 25% off all of my patterns. That applies on my website and Ravelry. If you purchase from my website, when you get your email with the download and everything, you will then have a link to add the pattern to your Ravelry library. If for whatever reason, like if you're buying more stuff on my website along with the patterns and want to also have the patterns on Ravelry, it's a way you can have them in both places and you don't necessarily have to check out on Ravelry. Yeah, it's gonna be a while. And thank you all for watching. I'm at the point of rambling now, but I really enjoy sharing my projects with you. I'm so appreciative of everyone who watches along and follows what I'm up to and leaves lovely comments. I'm unlikely to be able to get to all of my comments at any point soon. I do see them and I love them, and it just takes a while to get through all of my messages and everything. But please, I would love to hear from you, and I will be back. So until then, if you want to support me, you can join my Patreon. You can just watch my back catalogue on YouTube if you want to. There's another big back catalogue on Patreon, but on YouTube, just by watching with the ads on and everything like that, provides a tiny bit of income for me, which is appreciated. That goes for all creators. If they've got ads on their videos, that helps them. And even if you're not watching ads because you have premium, that's even better. I sound like such a massive shill now. But just, I find it fascinating the way things work behind the scenes. Views from YouTube Premium viewers are more beneficial to creators if that is something that matters to you. And also you don't have to watch with the ads, because I find ads maddening. I'm sorry, they're a necessary evil here. But again, videos without ads on my Patreon. And I shall be back next autumn. I will probably have lots of things to talk about then. And I'm looking forward to catching up with you then. And in the meantime, I hope you have a lovely, lovely time and some happy crafting. So bye-bye for now.